Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Unnext News Radio podcast, your news source for all things unexplained. And now, here's your host for the Unnext News podcast, Margie K.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Unnext News. I'm your host, Margie K. And as you can see, I'm in my new studio. That is not finished yet, so it is not going to end up looking like this. But for now, that is what you get. Very, very plain. We are still in the process of moving, and oh my gosh, does it take a long time just to move one office. I am not looking forward to moving my entire house in the near future either. I think maybe I'll get some people, volunteers. And if I can't get any volunteers and bribe them with pizza and beer, I am going to hire a moving company. So this evening, I have a very special guest, and you are going to love this show. Drew Bankey is otherwise known as the Blue Thunder Man. And excuse me, allergies, so you're going to have to bear with me. Drew Bankey is not only an Iraqi Freedom War veteran and medicine man, but holds such Native American distinctions as Sundancer and Sacred Pipe Carrier. He is widely considered a master of plant medicine, specializing in certain things I can't pronounce right now, because I'm going to have to ask him what they are. He is also the co-founder of Sacred Journeys Within, a nonprofit plant medicine church, an author of the internationally distributed books I'm Perfect and So Are You, and Find Your Inner Guru, a Clear Channel of Osiris, Archangel Michael, and of Source. Welcome to the program, Drew.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight. I know you are a busy man. If you just, people take a look at your website, they won't believe everything that you're doing. So, and just in the time that we've had time to chat this past week, I found that you and I have a lot of things in common and have had a lot of the same types of experiences. But let's start with your background a little bit. Why don't you tell us about the war and then how you got interested in some of these other metaphysical subjects and source subjects?
Yeah. So, long story. Grew up on a farm, Northwest Ohio. Was a police officer for a little while, for 3 years. 2001, 2004, went active duty. I was reserve, went reserve in 99. Then I went active duty in 2005. And when I stopped becoming a cop, and to go to Iraq, that was my intention. And within a couple months of me going active duty, I was in Baghdad, and a lot of paradigm shifts happening there. Definitely wasn't on a spiritual path then or anything. Knew of a higher source, I guess, or a higher power, but didn't know anything about it. Didn't really care to, and was kind of shaky on those beliefs at best, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Had another tour in 2007. That tour was in Western Iraq and Ramadi. Very volatile area. Saw a lot that deployment. Saw a lot of combat that deployment. A lot more than my first. And come back with a lot of PTSD. Got out in 2009, and unknowingly was dealing with PTSD from 2009, 2014. I wrote it off as depression. I wrote it off as just being. I had a lot of substance abuse of a lot of different things. And it all culminated in 2014 with a suicide attempt where I wound up in the hospital. Actually, wow. At that point, I was building a company, Glass God Distribution. I had a couple multi-million-dollar investors. I had a warehouse in Fort Wayne, Indiana, a 12,000 square foot warehouse in Fort Wayne, Indiana that was being renovated, office space. Just everything was going great at that time. And, I looking back, I couldn't even tell you what happened other than I just, the result of it, I wound up in the hospital, after being not really in a coma, but not coherent, like asleep for almost 28 hours. I tried to overdose on Xanax, and that was a very life-changing moment for me. I lost everything. My investors, went the other way, as they should in that situation, and
Mm.
I lost everything. I lost my house. I lost everything, and it wasn't. It was around that time, of me starting to rebuild my life. I met my now wife, and yeah, we've been together pretty much ever since the first time we met. And as I was telling you yesterday, the other day when we were speaking, she's my partner in life. She's my medicine partner. Now we share a child together and going through a whole nother ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
But so from
And
2014 to 2016, went through the VA healthcare system, really intensely. I was dabbling in getting treatment from them before, because for maybe PTSD, but after 2014, it was no doubt. After the suicide attempt, and I started talking to the counselors and stuff. It really started coming up exactly what was going on with me. I started really digging into myself, and the VA healthcare system didn't work. Pharmaceuticals was, everybody knows, if people's listening to this podcast, they know, like, the pharmaceutical industry is at best, uh, a racket, that is for about money making. It's not about health or anything like that. But
right.
found out. I'll get off that subject.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I don't have helicopters coming after me, but
Exactly.
everybody knows, like, the way it's going. We're going more towards natural healing and away from pharmaceuticals.
Mm-hmm.
That's the progression of. I think we're all in agreement on that on some level. I think the collective's in agreement on that on some level. Anyways, um, ayahuasca come into, the conversation. I heard the word in conversation with someone. We were talking about it, and it, like a lot of people describe ayahuasca when it starts off like that. The word is a seed, and that word will eventually germinate into where you go to maybe a ceremony, or you look into it, at least look into it more. But the word is the seed, and uh, the seed ayahuasca, the word, come into my wheelhouse in 2016. A couple months later, I was in my first ceremony. Wanted to go down to Peru, couldn't afford it. The financial reasons and whatnot. Couldn't afford it, and ended up finding a plant medicine church in Soul Quest in Orlando, Florida, and went there, did my first ceremony. My first ceremony was horrible. Didn't see anything. I was in the bathroom a lot. My second ceremony was the following night. The first ceremony was Friday night. Second ceremony was Saturday night. Second second night, I went through. Well, I thought I was dying. I thought I couldn't breathe anymore,
Mm.
and had my awakening moment where I went through a tunnel of light, come out the other side, and um, saw a bunch of different, like a Rolodex going past me of pictures, and I realized those were what I perceived at that time was past lives. Now I understand them as just
Mm-hmm.
um, experiences that make up the soup of Drew. But now looking back on it, it just amazes me even more, because how many different lifetimes go when or has is going into making up what I am right now. So
Right.
that was
Right.
my second ayahuasca experience. My third one was the following weekend um, and I went into that ceremony with the intention and asking the spirits of I wanted to see what I was, and when I see what I really was, without any shrouds or anything. And I was shown that I would be speaking. The light would be coming through my, basically there would be an energy coming through my crown chakra. It'd be going in through my chakra system down to my throat. I'd be my whole chakra system be transmuting it, but I'd be transmuting in a way like I'm doing right now, transmuting a vibration that I feel from the universe into a language that can be digestible by most of my brothers and sisters, my other incarnations in form right now, because
So
they can't hear.
you're a
They can't
channel.
hear.
Mm-hmm.
I am an open channel that is past just turning it on, and is just speaking as of right now. Like, I'm speaking as Drew as well. I'm also Drew, but Drew holds the same. I feel Drew holds the same qualities and values as the rest of the universe. So that's why I feel that now that when a channel goes like that, it's not really a channel anymore. It's just part. It's just that drop speaking for the universe, or speaking for the ocean. That drop speaking for the ocean to the rest of the ocean.
Now, I've got a picture I'm going to show. Where was this taken?
So this was at Chaco Canyon, 2018, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Could be off by a year or two, but this is I speak about. There's a moment, as a key moment in my development of who I am now, happened after this. But this is Chaco Canyon by my wife, and she was just taking a picture to show the kiva structures. This is the main kiva structure for at Chaco Canyon, and the picture, the orb that's in front of it, or the partially manifested being that's in the picture, we didn't see until afterward, actually weeks afterwards, until we was looking through these pictures. Didn't see this in there. Interesting enough, this night, we were celebrating our anniversary, and we decided we was going to go to Chaco Canyon, visit the Four Corners area and everything. And we had a Airbnb in Cortez, Colorado, which is just a few hours away from Chaco Canyon. And so we drove back to Cortez that night, and to our B&B. We had dinner. We went out and had dinner. We went back to the Airbnb, and at that time I was still I don't smoke tobacco anymore. At that time I was still smoking tobacco, and I woke up in the middle of the night. It was like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, which was there for a couple of years in between. And the only reason I'm saying all this is I hope it connects to some of your audience, that they can open up to some of their experiences more, and help them process. But in between the hours of 2 and 4 was, it seemed for me, for about 2 year span, it was always, I was always up. It was like clockwork. For every single night I was up during that time. And I would have to go smoke tobacco, or something. I would just be keyed up, I'd just be really anxious. So this happened this night after that picture was taken, after Chaco Canyon, after the orb picture. That night, went back to the, like, 2-3 o'clock in the morning, woke up, went outside to have some tobacco. And that's when I had the experience I speak about in my first book, of the face-to-face encounter with ET, and where it was a shadow being. I thought it was a shadow, but I turned around and looked. There was no street lights or anything around me. It was just pitch dark, but I was still seeing a shadow. And that when I turned around and looked at it again, it opens up its eyes, and I started seeing just galaxies upon galaxies in its eyes. And I kind of like dove in it. My consciousness dove out of my body into its eyes, and it started going, and it started showing me so much information at this rapid speed, like basically like I was definitely getting a download, because
Mhm.
I was trying to digest some of it while I was showing it. It was just like, don't try to digest, just take it. You can unpack it later. You can read these books later, but you just take these books with, basically just take these books with you, put them
Right.
in your bag, because you're not here for very long. Because my physical self got freaked out after a few seconds, and went inside, and it started to process this. The part that was really amazing to me was, um, I had a dream about 2 weeks later, after this physical experience. I had a dream, and I went through the same experience, but from the other viewpoint. And that's when multidimensionality, bilocation, that's when it all clicked, and it went from becoming an idea to me. It I remembered it. I remembered all those teachings, and this
And
happened.
understood it.
Right. And it's not like a relearning anymore. It's just like, it's just like, oh yeah, I did this before,
Mhm.
and um I'm sure that you've had some of those same type of experiences.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that some people that's listening to this right now has had some of those experiences. The let Like, my message is, we're all superhumans, and we need, we're going through a change in our DNA right now. The sun is different than what it was 5-10 years ago.
Oh,
What's
I
coming
am
from the
so
sun
glad
right.
to hear you say that because I there feels like so much more light coming from the sun that I've gotta have I really need 2 pairs of sunglasses on when I go out.
Yeah,
Is that
I wear sunglasses all the time.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's not because I'm a stoner, because I'm an open Colorado weed smoker, So, but that helps me. That helps me stay grounded. Really, for some people, it takes some marijuana, like takes them in a different place. But for me, it helps me, like, be more human. Like,
Mm.
if I don't smoke, I get I get sounding robotic after a few days. Like, it's not, I don't have no emotions or anything like that. I start getting real, some deep downloads, and there might be a time for that. But right now, I like how the downloads are coming and everything at a slow pace. But
When you
um,
first started having experiences and contact with these, higher beings, these higher energies, did it did it freak you out and you ran away? Because you mentioned, you ran away, but then later on, did you get used to that and then sit quietly and let it happen?
I wouldn't say run away. In a sense, running. I guess running away from myself a lot, because I went back and forth a lot. It took a lot for me to fully believe all this was going on, as fact. And it had to some just wild things happen that the universe had to do, that it had to prove itself to me. It started off one time. I'd be getting downloads and everything, and okay, what is this coming from? And if this is real, when we moved to Crestone, Colorado, a couple, like, 4 years ago, we had deer walking. We had, like, a mule deer walking through the yard, like big mule deer bucks, like, with antlers and stuff.
Mhm.
And one time, I thought I was speaking to one of them, like, telepathically, And I'm like, if you can hear me, leave an antler shed in the yard. I swear, I swear on everything, Margie. Within 3 days, there was an antler shed on our quarter-acre plot in Custone, Colorado. A fresh antler shed
Mhm.
from what.
There's
And
your
so
answer.
that was one of my first, like, made the hair stood up. It's like, okay, it's like talking to someone, um with cans through a string, and you finally get a response back, and you're like, but it's like on such a more, like, grandiose, scale.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like one of the first things, and feathers and just all types of things. Just uh I'm a Sundancer. Sundance, that's a really hard, I guess some would say it's a hardcore ceremony. It's a ceremony where you fast for 4 days without food and water, and you dance from sun up to sundown. There's a piercing involved where you put their pinch your skin out, pierce you with a scalpel or a knife, and then put either a bone or a piece of wood in there, and then it has two strings going up or attached to a tree, or you can pull buffalo skulls. Like sometimes you can get attached on your back, and you'll be pulling buffalo skulls around in a circle. It's all painful. It's all a huge sacrifice, but it's a native ceremony it's very old. I participated in 3 years of this. I danced a tree the first year. I pulled 4 buffalo skulls the second year, and the third year I eagle danced, which mean I pierced on the first day, and I was going to stay pierced and attached to the tree the whole time. So at night I would, when the sun would go down, I would just lay on the ground. The sun would come back up. I would just stand back up and start dancing. The other dancers, they would only they would pierce, but they would only stay attached to the tree maybe one round, which is only a couple hours out of the 4 day span. So they would pierce for one round, and they would be attached for one round, and then they would dance, and at the end of that round they would break away from the tree, and then the rest of the time they were just dancing. But the eagle dance is where you stay attached to the tree, lanyard to the tree the whole time. So I was dancing with elk bone pegs, which I had the spirit. This is one of the things the spirits told me to do, like to dance with elk bones. And I found out afterwards that Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull used to dance with elk bone pegs, and the first Sundance was done with elk bone pegs. And the leg bone that I was gifted to make my pegs out of was traditional sense. Way back in the beginning of the Sundance, this was the traditional way of doing it, and the traditional part of the elk to use. And it just happened to come to me. So I danced the first day. I was fine. The second day, the only time you did leave the arbor of the tree or the lanyard is to go in a sweat lodge. So I went out and got in a sweat lodge, and with the rest of the dancers, and we started singing and everything. We closed the flap, and next thing I know, I was being drug out of the lodge, and just I hit my wall. The universe had melded together, like all dimensional fields and vibrations seemed to be mixing over on each other. So it was very hard to tell like who was actually there and who wasn't, or everybody was there, but it was hard to tell who was in the physical, because I couldn't tell any difference from the spirit world to the physical. And the chiefs took me to the side. The medical team come over and checked me out, and my eyes were dilating, going different ways. I was seeing through people. I was seeing people's bone structure. I was seeing people's vein structure, their blood. And I was seeing through them, and I was seeing old native medicine men that have been dead hundreds of years. They were standing behind them, and they were everybody, all the spirits and everything, were all just sitting there looking at me, trying to see what I was going to decide to do. And I decided that I had to, probably quit that dance that day. And I had the pegs already in, so they asked me what I wanted to do, if they could cut them out or they could pull them out. And I said I didn't come here to have them cut out. Even as sick as I was, some told me I still had to have them pulled out. I had them do it. Long story short, I went to the tree and everything in between rounds. So normally a normal Sundance round, there's a big drum. There's 10, 15, 20 people sitting around it. Sometimes there's more than one drum like that, big drum, and they're all singing the same song at the same beat. And that's really the medicine of the ceremony, is getting the everybody's on their same intention, and everybody gets in sync with that beat of that drum and the
Mm-hmm.
heartbeat of everybody around the Sundance, and watching the people pierce and rip their skin open. And, from, long story short, I had a near death experience. I died. I was gone for 7 minutes and come back. And then I repeated everything that everybody said around me. And the spirit said there, you wouldn't dance again. And this was in 2019. And the spirit said we wouldn't dance again. I come out, I set up, and I said, "Oh my God, we're not going to dance again. The Sundance is over." They're like, "Lay back down. You're you're not feeling good. Just lay back down." I said, "No, like seriously." They said the suffering's over. We're not supposed to dance anymore. All this stuff. Well, 2020 happened. COVID struck, and we didn't dance in 2020. We didn't dance in 2021. We haven't danced since. And I'm from my father's side, I'm part Shoshone, small part from my father's side, Western Shoshone, Cecil Caldell. But I'm a white guy, and to be there and there's be a bunch of like full-blooded natives, and you come up and you be the white guy with the vision, but it's not anything about that. I think that's part of why, like, I've had all these visions and everything, and be who I am, because people have to check themselves. They have to listen for the message, and like they have to get past the white hippie mentality or whatever they see,
Mm-hmm.
and for this story, and really hear the message of what it is I am. What it is I am, I think I'm here to bring forth the next phase of this evolution that we're going through. We've been on the UFO subject for a long time. We've been digesting it, and we're at the bottom of the barrel of these little bits that we've been chewing up. We're starting to go over the same stuff over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're
Speaking of UFOs, what
well,
is this picture about?
so this is a dream space I was in, a meeting I was pulled into, um, an abduction, I guess, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, just sleeping and found myself in this space. This is a sketch. This is me, the single. Then I was in a room. There was a small table in the front, and it was just all glowing like white. The seating and everything was white, and the table was white, and the floor was a little bit lighter. But to the right, there was a door, and these three beings walked in, and behind them there was porthole windows where I could look out and see like stars. But this, this is a pretty good representation of a dream that I had. And this was like, I guess my three guides when I met my three guides. And now since I broke all this down, I understand, like, they were depicting the Holy Trinity, and they were depicting the source and masculine and feminine, and that they were just all this what I've been through was just a message to get me back to the source and the oneness, really.
Well, life is a journey, right?
Yeah.
And we are the sum of all of that. Um, Gosh, let's talk about numbers for just a minute. We were talking about synchronicities with numbers, and I've had a lot of experiences with that, with 1111 following me around. And when I look at a clock, it happens to be 1111. If I take a flight somewhere, it's 1111. And this has been going on since 2001, when I had a contact with my grandfather, who had passed on, and it hasn't stopped. So what can you tell us about numbers and synchronicity?
Well, to start off with, the reason that the universe, we're just call it the universe or source. We're call it source for lack of
Mm-hmm.
a better term. Really, there's really no name for it, because once we put a name for it, we start to put it into a box. But for this conversation, we're just going to call it source, and this is the universe or sourceful universe of all. It uses the language that it looks at us as a collective human species. It looks as a whole planet, and it looks at our language. A's are different. We write A's and B's and C's way different than on the other side of the planet. But a 1 and a 2 and a 3, almost anywhere on the planet, look the same. So this is the reason the universe uses numbers, and it's the most simplest form of communication outside of telepathy. What, you start seeing number sequences and everything. That tells me telepathy is kicking in and is already on, and you just start to have to realize it. That's when you start seeing more than number sequences more than once or twice a day. That I would say that is really a clear sign telepathy is already there, because all these things overlap. So all these ways and new understandings, new vibrations, and new ways of communication, they all have to overlap for us to move forward.
Most
So
certainly.
if you're seeing number sequences, chances are you're probably having a lot of deja vu. You're probably having a lot of dreams. You're probably having a lot of ringing ears. You're probably up from anywhere from 3 to 5 a.m. Most nights. You're affected by full moons. You're affected by new moons. You're affected by you're affected by all these things.
Mhm.
And that's it's all part of it. And I'm here to say that there's a bunch of people just like me that are going through the same thing. Whether you're going through all these things that I'm going through or more or different things, I'm sure that most of the audience can relate, and that's just another proof that we're moving forward in this evolutionary, unfolding, where our DNA is being changed.
Mhm.
The sun, like I said before, the sun is different than what it was, and there's different codes coming through. And I speak a lot about the Mayans and the Vedics. That they are, if you go back and listen to some of their stuff, they really lead you in the right direction. Looking at the sun in the morning, doing the morning sun meditation when it crests the ridge, that first 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. You want to be careful not to hurt your eyes, but that very first crest when it comes over the horizon, look at the sun and understand that there is only one consciousness. We're all sharing it. Everything that's in between me and the sun's an illusion, and me and the sun are the same. And watch what happens with the sun. And you start doing that more and more. You have to pace yourself at first. You can't do it a lot at first, because you'll start really messing yourself up, because you're actually receiving codes. So think about how fast light travels. That first 15 minutes, all the light codes that are going to affect the whole day on how everything's going to play out go into the plane, the prism, the picture prism that we're all in, the movie theater that we're all in.
Mhm.
All those light codes come in for the day, how everything's going to turn out. Whether you're going to go to the store, whether you're going to stay home, anything's going to, who's going to call, all the light codes come in for the whole day in that first 15 minutes. The Vedics and everything, if you listen to what they say, they tell it all. They tell it kind of roundabout, but they do explain it, that you will start having more deja vu and be able to tell the future more and more, because you're starting to receive the light codes sooner. And you're
Mhm.
starting to see it. You're starting to get them before it plays out throughout the day. So you're receiving them in your receptors through your portals. Our portals of existence that we're in right now. And you go through your eyes, and it goes through and it gets stored in here. And throughout the day, as it goes through, we start having more and more deja vu. So the sun meditation is a free medicine. Nobody can stop you from taking it. It's not regulated by the government, and it's ayahuasca is a watered down version of this ceremony that I just explained to you is ours. Is every single one of ours. It's an inherent. We own it. Each and every one of us own it. So we can do it at any time. This is ceremony, the morning meditation ceremony that I just explained to you.
Mm-hmm.
Ayahuasca is a watered down version of that. You know. So
now, what about some people, including me, who have seen the sun, and I've seen this at sunset, and then a second smaller sun next to it. I've seen it twice, and I know other people have too. Do you know anything about that?
no, all I can say on that, I've heard of that before. All I can say is sometimes when we're in certain spaces, our vibrations match a frequency, and we may flash different things. So if you're seeing that, I'm assuming that you're seeing other things too, like you might be driving and you see, it happens to me a lot when I'm driving. You know, my mind would just wander off somewhere, and I see a old spirit beside the road. You know, and then
yeah.
then it's like, oh, once I process it, for it would disappear. You know, or see there'd be sometimes I see a craft for a moment, and then be like, oh, there's a stop sign coming up. I have to re-engage in this life, so I come back.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's happening. So when when in those
Kind of a shift
meditations,
in dimensions. Would you call
well,
it like a dimensional shift?
well, no, I think it's much simpler than that, Margie. I think it's your masculine and feminine energy that makes up the whole balance of you. I think it's when it comes into full alignment, you go and you start to shift into a different phase. I think I think it's I think really at a nutshell, uh, if we start there and we can expand out from there. But I think as far as the conversation goes, but I think if we can focus just on that, just our masculine and feminine energy, the yin and the yang, the positive and negative, the duality that we are encased in right now. We're encased in a lesson in duality, a 3D lesson in duality right now. But that's just our being. Now we're starting to figure out how to escape this 3D casing of duality that we're in. And the first step is falling in love with this 3D experience, and then you can move forward. You can't move forward and be like, I'm done with the 3D experience. I'm done with duality, this, that, and the other. No, that's one of my biggest lessons that I've found over the past couple of years. All the death and loss that's been in my life, I was able to find the beautiful moments in that chaos, and I think that was really the overall lesson in what I was going through.
And you have a new addition to your family.
We do.
Speaking of numbers, your son was born early,
He was.
and he was born on 1/11. Now, did the numbers 1/11 have meaning for you?
Yeah, I mean 111. If it really speaks to me about the sketch from the three people. If you can bring that sketch back up, the 111 is each one of them saying they're each one. We're here as three, but we're all one, and that was what 111's always meant for me, and 111's actually took me back to this vision. So whenever I see 111, it takes me back here, and it's kind of it's weird because it's like they showing three but saying one, but I think that's I I really really think, Margie, like I think that's where we're at in this storyline in our lifetime of humanity. I think we're at that point where we have to look and say we're three but we're one. I'm all but one, and we have to be okay with both, and find the balance moving forward. I think that's where we're at. I think we're at the point of becoming aliens. I think we're about to become star travelers, and most of us already realize that we don't have to have. It's not about having a ship. It's not about having a ship landing on the lawn of the White House and a ramp dropping down and someone coming out and saying the president. For one, they don't recognize the president as a world leader. They don't recognize any government. They recognize spiritual leaders as which is really us, but they don't recognize any of those leaders that are part of the 3D structure as that. The answer for disclosure, we've already had disclosure. Like when are we going to have disclosure? What does this, for one, we have to be clear on what disclosure is. Does it mean the government's going to acknowledge ET? Well, if that's what it is, I think most of us agree that we don't really need that. Like we don't need the government to acknowledge it. They've already acknowledged it. I mean, how many more times they have to acknowledge it?
They have, but there's not going to be any presidential announcement about it,
right? Because it's all a political thing. Like this, but they've already acknowledged they're real. Like the next question: who are they and what do they want? The answer is they are me and you in the future, because time's of illusion, and they're here. Why are they here? They're watching us because we are on the toddler stage right now, and they're trying to make sure we don't bump our heads on any furniture because we're starting to learn how to walk. And walking is becoming an intergalactic species that is able to travel outside the range of the moon and the Mars and whatnot, because we're realizing that we can travel with our consciousness.
Do you think that more people are awakening right now, recently?
Yeah. I mean, the time structure of everything, if you look at the movement of the planets and everything, it's the movement of humanity is not dictated by a group of people sitting at a few desks in a building in some city in a state on a small part of the planet. How everything is dictated is the movement of the stars and a galactic. Like that's why astrology is becoming so much more looked at and revered as not hocus pocus anymore. It's really being revered as, okay, we can really start to tell what is happening by charts and all these things. Like how everything lines up. By the way, I had Nico. I'm not gonna mispronounce his last name, but my buddy Nico, he's a pretty well-known astrologer, and he did Hawk's birth chart, and he said that we're gonna have to find a Charles Xavier school for him or something, because he's gonna start doing crazy stuff right away. I can feel it, but
yeah, I can sense it. That's why I told you the other day he's a star child.
yeah.
You got your hands full. So but he came into the right family.
He did. So, and I'm honored. I'm honored he chose me as his father, and I know he's gonna be what I am and so much more. And that's just it. I can't wait to see it unfold, and I can't wait to see the gifts that he brings to this existence. He's a beautiful being already, and he's downstairs right now, probably eating or sleeping. So,
yeah, that's what babies do.
Yeah, but I sent you one more picture of I think it's some asteroid, and
oh, you know what? I couldn't download that. So just tell us about it.
So there was an asteroid that come, and when it passed Earth, it was within an hour or two of my son being born. So it was like asteroid Y948. It was like the size of the Eiffel Tower or something like that. But it passed by Earth on 111, and didn't find out about that till afterwards. More about so my wife went into early labor. She delivered at 28 weeks, so it was like 3 months early. And
That's
he wasn't due until the original due date was 4/4. And we didn't choose this. Like the doctors like tell us all these dates and everything. Every time they tell us a date, my wife just looks at me and I just roll my eyes, But her original due date was 4/4, and I was like, well, it's gonna be a numbers baby, And then he come on 1/11, but on the 10th, January 10th, that night, I was actually doing another podcast. I was with Jesse Rogue with the Rogue Report, and I was doing a interview with her, and I could hear through the headphones a break in the interview. I heard because the bathroom's like right down below the studio, and I could hear my wife down there moaning. And I was like, I got to go. I ran downstairs, and she was in labor. Went to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, a meteorite was going in line with us, and it was so low. It was like in the atmosphere where it was like changing colors from like purples, blues, and yellows and all.
wow.
And it was going in line with us towards the town, towards the hospital. And time, like, it was like time went like half speed for a few seconds. And I just like looked over at my wife. She was like in between contractions. I was like, do you see that? And she's like, yeah. She's like, that's amazing. And it was like, and then time just started again. And I just processed. I'm like, man, something's about to happen. Like this, we're not just going to go, and they're not just going to send us home in a couple hours. Something's happening. I'm going to have a baby, or something drastic's going to happen. Luckily, his baby coming, he's fine now. But yeah, we were in the hospital for almost 9 weeks. We just got home a few days ago.
Wow. Wow. Now, got a couple other things that we can discuss. This location, I didn't even know this existed, and this is in Colorado, right?
California.
Oh,
Blythe.
California.
Blythe. Yeah. Lythe. Blythe, California. It's an amazing spot. This is a 105-foot structure. Well, not structure, but it's I forgot the term that they use on it, but it's like a petroglyph, but it's a pictograph or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's really clear that and there's a bunch of them out there. This is just one that is out there. There's a bunch of other ones out there. There's a craft out there that is depicted, but these are all very clearly that they're pictures for someone. They're like signaling to the sky, because it's over 105 feet tall picture that's sketched out onto the ground.
Like
Question
at
is, like,
Nazca.
what are they trying to communicate with? And this is very old structure. This is like, thousands of year old structures or whatever. I don't know how exact. I'd be lying if I tell you give a date on it, but the audience can look this up. Blythe, California. And just to add to that, the United States is covered in these sacred sites, especially the Western United States. There's a petroglyph site. I sent some pictures. You have some pictures. This one's by Santa Fe. This one I wanted to depict and show the spiral. So this is over 300 petroglyphs close to Santa Fe. I think Pennonite Canyon or something like that. But it's a large petroglyph site, over 300 drawings over a bunch of rocks close to Santa Fe, real famous one. I wanted to show that picture to depict the spiral. This is Chaco Canyon, another petroglyph site from 1300 BC. I know Chaco a little bit better than most other sites, but this spiral again is depicted in the Chaco Canyon petroglyphs, and we're talking about 1,000 miles, 500 to 1,000 miles. I don't know in between those two sites, but there's every petroglyph site that I've ever been to has always had a spiral depiction in there somewhere, and that's depicting the Fibonacci sequence. If any of your audience has ever messed with a pendulum, they've seen energy, they've seen the chi, or the energy of the universe, the spiral of the energy of the universe is coming out all the time. That's giving us life and to manifest with. And that's really obvious by all these sacred sites and all these ancient spiritual tribes and ones that were really tapped into spirituality. They wanted us to know, if nothing else, to remember that things moves in that energy moves in a spiral. That if there's one thing they want us to remember, that's it. Like,
you're right. It's all over the world. The same message is everywhere.
everywhere.
They might have some of their symbols might be a little different, but that seems to always be there. So we need to pay attention to that.
It's apparent by how our planets rotate. They're being manifested, and the Earth and all the planets are constantly evolving and growing and changing at all times. So they're spinning, but they're not held down. They're not compacted on another object like we are. We're our physical being, and Drew and Margie is pulled down by gravitational force and magnetic force, and the pull of this big ship that we're on, Mama Earth. We're riding this big ship through space, but she's being manifested as well at the same time. Here, So here's one thing that really gets people, like, I've been given downloads, but I've been just given obvious downloads. Like, I ask, so what, what is our relationship? And it's like, well, from the earth and our physical human body. It's like, well, we go a little bit of time, but the earth, when we die, the earth expands. So the earth expands through our death. And that just really hit me hard, just to see that whole cycle, and just to be so honored to be part of the expansion of the earth, of my physical form. And now knowing that I will never die, I've died, and I know that doesn't really happen the way most people think. And so I know I never die, but I know there's a physical part of me too. And one day I'm going to be able to be and take part again in the expansion of the earth.
Okay, Drew, we've got about 1 minute left. So tell us about your books.
I'm Perfect and So Are You. Talks about my experiences, what led me to oneness, and some really interesting stuff in there. Talks about the Sundance, talks a lot about ayahuasca ceremonies, and other native ceremonies I've been part of, and visions. The second book, Find Your Inner Guru, is tries to answer the question, and it's kind of more of a workbook, more than anything, of what happens after the awakening, what happens after the moment of enlightenment, what does your life look like, and how do you mold those two together. And just want to give a shout out to Colleen Duran, my co-author on both my books, PhD. She likes to stay in the background mostly, but she's an amazing force, and she's really helped me put together the books. And I loved her balance of having her educational background to help balance out the information in the books and make sure that we try to put out the best information as possible.
Well, that's just great. I know you and I are going to be talking again very soon in the future. I'm going to need to have you come back on the show as well. Thank you so much for your time, Drew. This was absolutely fascinating.
Appreciate it, Margie. Hey, by the way, what's up with this conference going on here?
The XCon?
Yeah.
Well, May 13th and 14th. So check out our website at unxnetwork.com for more information about that. So, all right. Thank you so much. This is Margie K with Unnext News. I'll see you here again next Friday at 6 p.m. Central.
Appreciate it, Mark.
You've been listening to the Unnext News Podcast with Margie K. Any rebroadcast or duplication of this program or its content without express written permission from Unnext Media or Margie K herself is strictly prohibited. The Unnext News Podcast, in direct cooperation with the internet website unexmedia.com.